This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you an exclusive interview with Shri.Indevar Pandey, Secretary, Minister of Women and Child Development, on a World for Children. Interviewer is Aditi Tandon, journalist.
In the history of human rights across the world, the rights of children are by far the most ratified of all the rights. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Children defines child rights as the minimum entitlements and freedoms that should be afforded to every citizen below the age of 18, regardless of race, national origin, color, gender, language, religion, opinions, or origin. So these rights broadly encompass freedom of children and their civil rights, their family environment, necessary health care and welfare and education. The UNCRC, which is the broad outline for the world and the countries with respect to child rights, also outlines the fundamental human rights that should be afforded to children in 4 broad classifications that suitably cover civil, political, social, economic and cultural rights of every child. Mr. Pandey, a very important initiative of the ministry that we have learned of is this week that is being celebrated starting 14th of November, which is Children's Day, where you plan to create awareness among the general public about rights of the children, about what larger society and communities can do with respect to children. What, according to you, are the major rights that Indian children enjoy, and what are the challenges in the realization of those rights?
Let's begin with from where you ended is about United Nations Convention on Rights of the Child, which India ratified way back in 1992. Basically, there the rights flow in 4 themes. One is survival rights, where children's life, right to life, basic needs for existence, nutrition, shelter, and adequate living standards, access to medical services. Then second is development rights, where education, play and cultural activity, access to information, freedom of thought, these are protected. Then protection rights, where you protect the children from all forms of abuse, neglect and exploitation. And the fourth is participation rights. Much before UNCRC came into existence, in fact, Indian Constitution has a very well laid down system of child rights, which we can see like right to free and compulsory education, the Article 21A, which provides for children in 6 to 14 years age group, right to be protected from any hazardous employment till age of 14 years, Article 24. Article 39E provides the right to be protected from being abused and forced by economic necessity to enter into hazardous occupations. Rights to equal opportunities and facilities, which again flow from Article 39F. And right to early childhood care and education to all children till they complete the age of 6 years, Article 45. So we have a very well laid down system of constitutional guarantees in favor of child. Another one of the important ones is right to nutrition and standard of living and improved public health, which has become all the more important nowadays. Our constitution has been very well laid out as far as the rights of the children are concerned. If we see the protection of the child, Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015 is the primary law, and probably it is the most comprehensive law for protection and care of children among all the legislation in the country. We have seen that this has been very effective over a period of time, and we had brought in certain amendments in the current year, which we hope will improve it further. Whether it is a child in need, in conflict with law, or child in need of care and protection, it has laid down a very good institutional structure and supported by clear division of responsibility and authority at every level, that the child protection and empowerment has improved a great deal in last, I'll say, few years, right from the time the JJ Act has come into effect.
Mr. Pandey, I would like to get your opinion on changing trends with respect to environment in which children are now finding themselves in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. You know that children are increasingly studying from home, and online medium of instruction has become the new norm and the new normal. Of late, there have been a number of reports worldwide. I would especially like to quote an important report, 2021 Global Threat Assessment Report, which says that there has been a rise in the search and the scale of child sexual exploitation and abuse online. And it is growing at such a rapid rate that landmark changes in national laws are required to deal with it, because a lot of schools even today are giving children the option of either studying from home or coming to the school. So these options are going to exist in times to come. Is there anything that the government is thinking along those lines? Because that's a new area for you also.
You are aware that POCSO Act, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012, is again a very important act, and which criminalizes all incidents of offense of sexual assault, harassment and pornography, which has become a big issue during this COVID pandemic. Because of online classes and other things, children have been exposed to the cyber media to a much larger extent. And this is something which is worrying all of us. In POCSO, it's one of the rare acts where both showing and use of children in pornography is a crime. So to that extent, we have got the legal basis covered. We also have a very good system in Ministry of Home Affairs for reporting the cyber crimes. And again, the children have the flexibility of calling the child line on 1098 and also the helplines of National Commission for Protection of Child Rights and also SCPCR. So the systems are in place, but yes, these incidents have gone up, and we have to popularize our cybercrime cell, which is in MHA, to a larger extent, and make sure that everybody is aware of the existence of this cell, which also protects the identity of the person, and at the same time make sure that they are not caught in all these kinds of malices which has come through cyber media lately.
During this week, Mr. Pandey, when you are going to actually help childcare institutions get acclimatized with the new changes in the juvenile justice law, where you've also said that childcare institutions will now be held more accountable than ever for children who are in their care. What are the broad range of activities that are going on, and what is in store for the children? Because after all, you're doing it all for awareness with respect to children's rights. There are around more than 8,000 childcare institutions across the country, if I'm correct.
Yes. One of the major changes which has been made, something which was always there in Western nations, is about having a person who has been certified to be a person who can work in a child care institute or even schools. If you go abroad, you can't become a teacher or you cannot handle children unless you are certified by one of their authorities with certified, yes, this person is good enough to handle children. He has not been involved in any kind of crime against persons or this thing, any kinds of criminal activities. So this was one part which was greatly lacking in Indian legal system. So in the new JJ Act, we have brought this provision whereby all persons who are working in childcare institutions, including child welfare committees, district child protection units, that they all have due police verifications before they work in such institutions. For people who are in child welfare committees, specific qualifications are being prescribed so that only people who have welfare of children at their heart are put in such institutions, are made members of such institutions, and no person who has any criminal antecedent is appointed or it comes in close contact with child care institution. This, I would say, is one of the biggest changes. Second major change which we have brought is, earlier the emphasis was on keeping the child in child care institutions. Now we want to promote foster care of child in a much better way, because it's always better to keep the child in a family kind of environment compared to a institutional environment. And we have changed the incentive system in such a way so that it will be better for people to take children in foster care and rear them up instead of keeping them for a longer time in child care institutions. So these are two of the major changes which are being done. Again, if you see the adoption part of it, adoption part has become very complicated and used to take a lot of time, due to which adoptions in India were very few and far between. Now we are trying to put in place a system wherein district magistrate will be final authority to allow adoptions under JJ Act. And this is being brought out of the jurisdiction of the judicial system to make it faster. So we do hope that once this system starts working, the adoption process will be much more smoother and larger number of children will come in the adoption net through JJ Act. At present, large number of adoptions take place out of the JJ Act through Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, HAMA, which is called.
Can you specify what are the basic and fundamental differences with respect to adoptions under the Central Adoption Research Agency process which is covered by the Juvenile Justice Act and under the Hindu Adoption Maintenance Act, and which category of prospective adoptive parents should use which particular process?
Firstly, let me talk about the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. This is limited to the adoptions under this are limited to only Hindus, Sikhs, Jains and Buddhists. And the age of child cannot be more than 15 years. That is one restriction there with some relaxation, but those are not very easy to get through. And secondly, if you have a male child, then you cannot adopt another male child in the Hama. There is a restriction on that. And plus the aspect is both children, if you adopt a child, he will have the same rights as the biological child. So that issue is not there. There is no discrimination with the biological child and adopted child. So they have both equal legal rights. And adoption, once it is, registered, it cannot be revoked. So there are a lot of good systems in Hama, and it's a much easier system actually. For Hindus, it's a much easier system. You can go to the registrar of marriages, registrar of deaths and births. There are specified registrars where this can be registered, and with due process and notice, this can be done. Adoptions under JJ Act require a child to be legally free, which means he does not have parents, or the parents are missing, or the child has been abandoned or surrendered due to some reason to the child care institute. So the numbers coming within the JJ Act system are much less compared to Hama. Though the issue is people are not very much conversant with the adoption system in Hama, and there is no central authority through which we can know what is the number of adoptions taking place under Hama. But my belief is the numbers under Hama are very high, and we need to have some kind of registration system so that we know what is the number under Hama. Though adoptions under JJ Act are through the CARA, Central Adoption Resource Agency, so those are very well recorded and we have the number. It is also open to the people from outside India who want to take a child. So that way, the systems under JJ Act through CARA are much more streamlined, though we have brought in certain changes in Hama procedure for persons of Indian origin who are staying abroad or overseas citizens of Indian origin, which was a regulatory gap which was not there, and we have filled that.
Mr. Pandey, I remember under the JJ Act amendments, which Minister Smriti Irani had very eloquently piloted in both the houses of parliament, she had made a mention of empowering children who are housed in the childcare institutions. She had mentioned a particular incident from Bhagalpur, where she had said that a number of complaints had been put into a complaint box by children, but that box had not been opened for decades, which finally, when it got opened, the harrowing experience which children were having at that institute became public, and that's when the Ministry of WCD stepped in and rescued the children. What I want to understand from you is, changes in the law are all too well, but how would you ensure that children who are housed in childcare institutions under the care of the management there, actually whatever they say or whatever they complain about reaches the right ears, reaches the people who are in a position of authority and in a position to help them?
The legal framework has changed in a way that, as I mentioned earlier, number one, we are putting this for the staff of the child care institutions. The police verification has been made mandatory. Registration of all child care institutions has been made mandatory. So once every institution registration is made mandatory, then you have the power of district magistrates and district child protection units to inspect these institutions at regular interval. We'll be laying down a certain minimum number of inspections every year. So once these things are put in an institutional manner, things definitely improve. We are very confident. And this also comes through, let me tell you, from our experience. We have been reviewing the states on the number of childcare institutions, whether there's a need to open and all that. We have a system in ministry. And we find lot of institutions which were not running well. They are surrendering the license and they are closing down those institutions. That, I would say, is a good sign, because a lot of such NGOs were not very good in their activities, and now they are realizing that it has become a very regulated sector and it will not be possible to work in the way they have been working in the past. So we are quite confident that things will definitely improve from here on.
Mr. Pandey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You are listening to an exclusive interview with Shri.Indevar Pandey, Secretary, Minister of Women and Child Development, on A World for Children. Interviewer was Aditi Tandon, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.